Faye, welcome to Project Woman TV. I'm joined by the lovely Abby.
Stop. Wait. Are we like? Sorry. Are we in? Yes. Ignore me. Oh my God. Something just went crackers with my computer.
My lovely co-presenter is having a moment. So we'll just rewind slightly. Hi, everyone. My name's Faye. It's Friday. It's 12:30. And I was going to say it's Crackerjack, but I won't. It's Friday. It's 12:30. And welcome to Project Woman TV. Today, the lovely Abby, who's going to introduce herself in a moment. And we're going to have quite an interesting discussion, I think. I love talking to Abby because we come from it from two different perspectives. We agree on some things, but we have different points of view. So I'm going to pass you over to lovely Abby. Say your piece, Abby, now.
I said a bit of my piece before I came on. Had to vent a little bit of frustration, but that is the crux of what I believe to be about female health. You've got to let it out, express it so that you don't end up emotionally volatile. That's another conversation. I'm Abby. Welcome to this space. Awesome humans, women, females, humans with wombs, whatever you resonate with. There is this wonderful energy that comes from the womb, which is what we want to talk about. From the woo-woo to the not woo-woo. I mean, but what does that even mean? As far as I'm concerned, that is, again, the patriarch saying, don't believe in it. Shut yourself off. We are here to discuss the 5% increase. What is that, you say? Isn't that about business and money? No. We're talking about the 5% increase in the belief that menopause is a taboo subject. We spoke to the wonderful Rebecca Brown of Empower last week, and she shared this stat with us. And so I'm always curious to go a little bit deeper.
Yes.
My thought process is, where is this stat come from? And who is this affecting? I mean, that sounds like a stupid question because obviously menopausal women, but it's not just them. It's not just them. This is the women before the menopause. We're talking about young women going through puberty. We're talking about menstruating women, and we're talking about perimenopausal and menopausal women, because it's a drip-feed conversation. If young women believe that menopause is a taboo subject, that's the imprint they're going to carry all the way up until that point, so that when they get to that point, it's a catastrophe because they believe it to be. What do you think?
I think there's so many factors to this. One of the things that have been said to me repeatedly when I go and talk about the menopause, whether it be in companies or go and speak at a different function, the younger generation are kind of in two camps a bit. They're a bit like, oh my God, that was really informative, that was really interesting. Or they go, I'm scared. And I think to myself, why are they scared? Because our generation, are standing up talking about it so they can be informed. And I think the big surge of women, of us and other like-minded women that we speak to and interact with, all talking about the menopause, all setting up businesses and doing different things, it's been like a massive avalanche. If you think, it's like a tsunami of women standing up and going, I'm going through the menopause, I get angry, I get this, I get that, I get this. And you and I have touched upon this before, that, do you know what? It can be a bit tough, but can we give it a little bit more of a positive spin and a little bit more of an embracing of this is who you are as a woman and what you're going through, and you can come out the other side, or you can ride it in a relatively healthy, okay way. But I think the amount of women over the last few years that have stood up and voiced it has freaked a lot of other women out. And I find that quite interesting. And I also think, my own personal opinion, in terms of it being taboo, I think certain cultures, and I speak from a Black perspective, which a lot of them are still, a lot of them have very much religious beliefs, regularly go to church and such forth. That Talking about the menopause is not the done thing. Deal
It's
with
a sin,
it.
isn't it? You've got a vagina, it's a sin.
Yeah, it's a sin. Like, you bleed every month. It's just like, don't need to tell everybody that. But I think
Where's your dignity? God damn it!
But I think there's loads of different factors. I think, yeah, that I do think all of us standing up en masse is a plus, because it is now out there in the wider domain. But I think depending on where you live and who you interact with, if you're in a tiny little village and it's very PC and very, I'm going to just say, maybe, dare I say it, right-wing-ish a bit, that they're not really going to discuss those things.
No, not over a cocktail or a mocktail.
No, they're not over a cocktail. It's just not done.
Do you know what? So when you were saying that, this avalanche of conversation about the menopause, totally get it. And that's what it can feel like, isn't it? It's coming from a menstruating perspective, even though I know that I'm coming into perimenopause because my cycle is changing. Everyone's talking about the menopause, but no one's talking about actually what it is. And what I mean by that is, all we hear is what you said, Faye, is the symptoms. But what is it? What is menopause? And what I have garnered from, for me, the Red School has been a massive, I say education, but the way I see it now, it's a remembering, because I truly believe that every cell in your body knows how to menopause. It knows how to menstruate. It knows how to be well. Yeah. It's the environment that is creating the conflict. So the Red School reminded me of my menstrual cycle and what it actually was, which then taught me about the menopause and opened up this doorway that it's part of life.
Yeah.
It is a life experience, and life for me is exciting. It's wonderful. It is full with adversity and challenge.
Yeah.
But because I know how healthy that I am, because I've invested in it, that becomes more manageable. It's not such a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So when you don't know what something is, or even that it exists, that's the taboo, right? That's the scary thing. That's what creates the issue, because you don't know what it is. And then you start making all this stuff up in your head.
But I think from my own point of view, it's more than that, though, because I'd kind of come to terms with not having children. So how the whole menopause and losing my periods and all the rest of it, though I had period for the first 5 years of my perimenopause, regular as clockwork. So that to me is another taboo, like, oh, your period stopped. That's not true in my case. But I think the taboo for me when I started was how I was going to be perceived. I was worried how people looked at me and what people thought of me. And I think because mentally I wasn't old, and my perception, my own personal perception of the menopause was, oh, past it, over, life, done, finished, see you later, bye. That was my perception. So starting it, knowing that's not who I was, it then became taboo because I didn't want people to think of me like that.
How did you see? So this is the curious perspective, isn't it? So how did you see yourself? So you said you saw menopause as over the hill, past it, done. How did you see yourself at that time?
I saw myself as, and again, I think it is about people's circumstances, because I was 45 when I had my first hot flush. I'd spent the last 5 years dealing with accepting that I wasn't going to have a birth child, dealing with my mum having cancer for the first time. So that was an initial shock. So those last 5 years was a shit show, a complete and utter shit show. The next 5 years were a shit show as well. But that part there, when I started, I was young. I was like, right, I'm going to start doing shit. I'm going to get stuff done. I want to live a life. I'm going to do this, I want to do this, I'm going to do that. I was young and I just started a brand new job. I was supporting the CEO. I was at the pinnacle of my career. Do you know what I mean? So I was the complete opposite of what I thought the menopause was in my head. I was the complete opposite. I could still go out, I could still drink, I could still stay out late, I was still buying loads of clothing. I was essentially kind of just living my best dream life. And then this menopause thing hits, and I'm like, oh, that's not me, but I can't voice. Yeah,
but look at that, Matt. Look at that, right? So when we look at that, yeah, that's that. I never forget when I was interviewing Claire Snowden-Darling, who works also menopause, and she said at perimenopause you get this like call to action. And we was chatting, and I was like, oh my God, that was the Devon thing. That was the need to move to Devon, need to get out of London. And it was so strong that I actually said to my husband, if you don't want to come, let's just get divorced and get this sorted. That's how clinical it was. I knew I had to go. And I was like, oh, that was it. There was a build up before it, but that was it. But look, like, my body's like, right, let's get into this one. You was living your best life, and you was going through, you was going into peri, you was in that moment, you was in peri.
Yeah.
Someone else's belief of what menopause should be clouded your experience and changed it because you thought that you was old and over it and blah, blah, blah. But actually, this rush of energy was coming in and you was having the best time ever.
Yeah.
Let's look at that. But there's the taboo.
That's the taboo, because the knowledge, and I think it's good that we have got this avalanche of women talking about it, because this avalanche of women are looking good. Davina McCall does look good. Lisa Snowden does look good. I look good as far as I'm concerned. So we do have these women looking good and changing this, because it was the stereotype that was in my head, ultimately. I had a stereotypical view. And interestingly, I knew zero about the menopause, but my view was that, and yet it was informed from what, though? What informed that decision for me? Just decades and decades of that's what was whispered, like, menopause, she's over the hill. And I latched onto that and picked up on that and decided that's what it was.
But look at where the health has come from as well. Don't forget, you know, we go back to Hippocrates, and he believed that when women reached menopause, their womb traveled around their body and suffocated them because they wasn't getting enough sex. I mean, you know, we have been classed as hysterical for such a long time.
Yeah.
So that when these feelings arise, the fear, the ingrained fear from what's happened in the past, and whether you believe in the ancestral impacts, it's real. I tell you, my wonderful humans, we don't speak out because we're afraid of being deemed hysterical. So look at how that impacts us. If we speak out, it changes everything. And this is what we're seeing now. But are the words we're using supporting this change of mindset? You know, like I said, it's great to be. I think most of us know now about the symptoms. I know a lot of people don't, but we're aware that there's symptoms. But what about if we get underneath that and talk about why we're going through it and what the benefits are? Because really and truthfully, you know, do you want to be having children when you're 80? I mean, that terrifies me more than menopause.
I mean, hand on heart, I don't know, because I that's an interesting question, because I thought about this just from the perspective of not having children and always wanted them. I thought, what if I had a child now? Like, I suddenly got pregnant. I mean, it would be a miracle, but miracles happen, and it could happen. There's women in their 60s, 65 having kids. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to actively pursue having a child. But what happens if I suddenly am given a child at this late stage in my life? How do I? Oh, where you gone, Abby? Abby's left us for a second, so I'm currently technical hitchhiking. And I think, is she coming back? She might be coming back. Bear with us a second. And
What
she's
happened there?
back. Abby, do not leave me to man the show on my own, okay? We agreed this was a two-way conversation.
It's a double act. It's a double act. Don't worry. I've got you back, love. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Just want to say hello to Victoria. Thank you for joining us, darling. It's good to see you here. Any comments, please pop down. I'm hoping that I will receive comments and not turn us off. That would be amazing. Anyway, back in the room.
Oh my God,
back.
I love that.
I think we should call this the womb room, by the way. We're back in the womb room.
Yeah, we are back in the womb room.
So if I can continue.
All right, let's backtrack to what you said about
you were 65 and you're not going to have a child at 65.
No, I'm not going to have a child at 65. But I do think the whole perception of it's a positive thing is, I'm not sure if I would use the word positive, but I would maybe intercept it with more of a, let's be more accepting of what's going on with our bodies and our lives. And it's really weird because I'm trying to think back, and it's funny, I'm going to be a guest on a podcast soon, a lady, and I can't for the life of me remember her name, but she chats about periods.
Well, that's going to be a great podcast.
Yeah, sorry. So apologies, whoever you are. I can't think of her name just yet.
Right, reach for every supplement you've got now. Wake the rain up. Where's your fish oil? Come on, start tapping.
She's done a book on periods and kind of what are our memories of them and stuff. And I think my memory of my period, because I think I started when I was about 11 or 12, is going to be how I handled that is going to be different to how I handled the menopause. Because one, I was young, naive, like, what the hell's going on here? What things do I have to use? What is that blood coming out of me? All that kind of stuff. And like, roll on all my life's experiences, broken hearts, and just all that kind of shit that's gone on. And then I've got to that stage in my life and I'm like, I knew who I was. I was fine and living my best life. But other women might reach that stage and just go, who am I? Like, what am I doing? And now you've hit me with the menopause. And depending on their symptoms, they could be bad, okay, or just like horrific. So I think it depends on individually where women are. But going back to what you said in trying to make it positive, it's knowledge and information and kind of impressing that it's not over.
Yeah.
It's a new phase. It's a phase of your life.
And this is why there's so many great resources out there, Project Woman being one of them, and Empowder being one of them. And oh gosh, now I need my fish oil, but there's lots out there.
Yeah.
The positive side of things, I know what you're saying, and I totally agree about the accepting side of things. But here's the deal. What I have learned is this is why it's so important to learn about your period whilst you have it. Because when I have sat down with perimenopausal women, more so menopausal women, it's that the rage and the grief that they experience is saying goodbye to something they never said hello to. Mate, that hurts. If to not know a side of myself, my period has given me so much valuable information about me, my emotional health, my mental, my physical, my spiritual, all of that from a period. Phenomenal. I cannot tell you. Well, I can, but we need more time than what we've got.
Yeah.
Game changer. Don't regret missing out on understanding and creating a valuable relationship with yourself, because that's where the taboo comes from. You arrive at this phase of life totally unprepared. A big chapter missing. Get that? Oh my goodness. You're, the foundation from which you walk from, the direction that you go will be, I believe, a totally different experience. But I come back again, it's not that it's not going to be full of challenge, because everyone wants to hold on to that vibrant young element of their life. But I mean, my inspirations, I'll never forget, there was a yogi called Vanda Scaravalli, and at 99 the woman's still doing back bends and walking around like some ledge on legs. Do you know what I mean? And she was owning it, but she was doing it in a way that really supported her at that phase of life. And I'm like, yeah, own that. It's sweet. And that's why the period is so important, because you have to learn to rest within your bleed.
Yeah. And
You learn to rest. It's a valuable, important tool, but we don't believe we've got enough time for it.
No. And I think it's interesting because you've really looked at it and studied it. And I'd say I haven't gone that in depth on it. The one thing I'm very in tune with my body. So one, I always registered my period and recognized what day it was coming, knew what was coming beforehand. I'd have sleepless nights, or I'd be like really angry. And then the day my period started, I could literally lie in bed all day and sleep. And then 3-4 days later, getting the jelly that was released and realizing I was just a horny motherfucker and anything would do. all those things. So I knew all that about my body. I knew all that. And I think also because I looked into it from a fertility perspective, kind of what happened with your period, what your body was doing and stuff. But I've never, and also interestingly, another thing, I always knew if I took a flight and it was a few days before my period and stuff, when I landed, my period would have started. And also the moon affected my periods also. So I knew that much, but I'd not looked into it as in depth and studied it as you have, and how it affects you and how you've lived your life and stuff like that. I've never done that. So that's quite interesting.
Do you know what I found though? that I was innately, I was doing a lot of it anyway. But what you come back to is that women believe that they don't do enough.
Yes.
And that you do things so unconsciously within that rhythm.
Yeah.
But it's pulling out the feeling that it gives you, which is so important, because it's the recharge. That's the refueling part of it. You know, the slowing down aspect within, like, as I come up to my bleed, I was kind of doing it, but I realized I just needed a little bit more to refuel.
Yeah, to add to it.
So yeah, totally get that. So
your
go on, mate.
Period journey, has it always been kind of okay?
So like I said, I mean, I found my period at 34. I mean, and I started menstruating at 14. I mean,
when you say you found it, what do you mean?
Well, I thought a period was just a bleed. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. I was always kind of not shocked when it arrived. I was always very grateful when my period arrived, because I was such a late starter compared to all of my mates.
Right.
So that I was always so pleased, but it was always really painful. And what I didn't realize prior to doing the menstrual cycle tracking, it just sounds so clinical, menstrual cycle awareness, was how emotional I was at certain points with regards to PMS and how down I would get. And then obviously going into the physiology and the biochemical aspect of it, realizing that the blood clots that I was shedding weren't normal, you know.
Right.
But again, no one told me about what a great period, what constitutes a healthy period. Well, not clots the size of your fist for starters, but as a woman, you realize how little you know.
Yeah, there is definite knowledge lacking around the female body and what it goes through and what it's meant to do, what it can do, what it can't do, all that stuff. It's really interesting, because I think the menopause awareness, and maybe I'm just seeing it more and it's always been there, but I feel like the menopause awareness is definitely shining a light on the period, I can't pronounce the word, awareness. Yeah. There's certain words I can't pronounce. You'll realise that
that one.
in time. But I think I think it is. I don't know. Maybe because menopause is being talked about, and maybe because more women like ourselves are looking into it more rather than just like, oh, it's the menopause. Yeah, it's fine. You're gonna have this symptom, that symptom. Take this pill. Take that vitamins. So maybe because women are looking into it more, and I think being older and having the awareness to know what we want our bodies to be. Like, I like meditating because it just kind of chills me out, because I am normally running from A to B to C to D and all the rest of it. And knowing that that has a good impact on my body, and knowing what I fuel my body with in terms of foods and, okay, still alcohol. But yeah, what I do to it is I'm a lot more kinder to my body now. That's it. I'm more kinder to my body than I was previously.
I just went into a bit of a zone then when you said I like meditating, and then for some reason in my head it came up, and I like masturbating. So we've got all the M's covered. we got menopause, menstruation, meditation, masturbation. I mean, what else? What more? And she rips her headphones out of her ears. Oh god, it's all going off today. What more could you ask for, huh?
Oh, there's always more.
There's always more.
There's
more M's to surf. We're gonna tell you what. I'm gonna miss.
We'll come back to that next week.
Yeah, exactly. So having the knowledge, having the freedom of choice, having the power, these are all what's gonna reduce that taboo subject. Taboo, the belief that you can't speak about it or it makes you uncomfortable. I did ask my mother-in-law actually her thoughts on this, and she said that basically the representation, the women creating the conversation around the menopause, she felt she didn't resonate with.
Interesting.
So
it goes back to what I was saying about, because we're surrounded by that demographic of women and we've placed ourselves in that demographic of women talking about it, but there are women out there that just are not going to be talking about it. And because maybe they can't relate to us, or maybe because of their lifestyles, of where they live or whatever, they just are never going to connect to us and maybe we're being too brash with it, because I'm quite open now about talking about it and stuff, and maybe they...
Yeah, but you've gone down a rabbit hole, Faye. Like, you get to a point, you can't turn back.
No, you can't turn back.
You know how important it is. But I mean, that's a choice. That's a choice. If you don't want to talk about it, then that's fine. But are you suffering? Like, by not talking about it, are you putting up with something that you don't need to be putting up with? Are you burdening yourself with things that you don't need to be burdening? For me, I find it very easy to openly talk, like you've just said. To not have that, when there have been moments in time where I felt that I couldn't express myself, I can feel my whole body go brittle. I can feel my whole body. It feels like my body turns to glass.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stress coursing through every cell of my body. That's not healthy.
I don't think it's healthy, but because I always like to look at the two sides, I think I don't want the menopause to be taboo, but I think we have to kind of accept and respect some women just don't want to talk about it. Some women just don't like talking about it. And some women will just suffer rather than tackle it, deal with it, accept it. They will prefer to suffer and keep it a taboo subject. And I think, obviously, you've talked about this with your husband and all the rest of it, and other women, husbands are stepping up and just going, I want to know more. I've done talks where I've encouraged men to be present and ask me questions so they can support their staff, support their any staff they might have to look after or manage. But I think there's still a massive raft of men who will not talk about it, do not want to talk about it. And this will have a knock-on effect for their wives, for their partners, whoever they're with. So for them, it is still seen as taboo because their husband might find their periods yucky. You'd be surprised. Husbands, and they've had kids and stuff, and they still find the fact that their woman has a bleed each month. And we're not talking about any form of religion or anything. They will find it yucky and taboo, and it shouldn't be discussed. It's scary, and I want that to change, but I think there has to be an accept, because some people would see or would say that is being rammed down their throats now. This avalanche of women that have stepped up and talking about it. They some people will see it like that, just like bloody hell. All
Well,
again now.
it's like most things in life, isn't it? A trend
Yeah.
opens up and a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. This is where we come in to remind people that it's not a trend.
Yeah, it's my life.
It's part of a woman, a female, a human with a womb's rite of passage. Yeah. And I always find this really curious. It's the same as when talking about people, we don't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Or softly, I don't want to talk about it. It's the same as when people say they don't like dancing or they can't dance. Everything is a vibration. When a vibration comes to you, when you stop that vibration, you effectively stop life force running through your body. You are stopping life force from flowing through your body. So when that happens, that's basically death and stress. Does that make sense? That is deep.
That is deep. That is deep. What I will say, where I am now, is because I've accepted a few things about me and myself. And more than anything, I've accepted who I am. It's so funny, and many people will look at me, and my friends and my family know this, but I do have insecurities, but prior to my menopause, I had very deep rooted insecurities. Like I had a facade, and behind the facade was a very different woman. And over the last few years, I've learned to accept who I am. And as a consequence, I'm a lot happier.
Did that come from the menopause?
It came from a combination of things. It came, I would put it down to 1, the menopause, and in no particular order. 2, losing my mum. 3, I've got siblings, but my father's passed away when I was about 10. So my mum brought us 4 kids up on her own. And I remember when she died, just feeling like an orphan. And also being single, like I have to do everything on my own. I have to look after myself. And also a few life hiccups that happened. And I thought, okay, I'm doing me now, and everyone else can go swing. And that is the literal sense, but it was very much like, I matter. I need to look after me. I'm okay. I'm an okay person.
Did you ever, though, at one point when you realised that you was going through menopause, go, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want it in my life. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Did you? How did that feel?
It was horrible. And I would say the first year where I wasn't so much in denial, but I just never told anybody. Told my friends, asked my mum, and she was just like, oh, I can't remember. Like this. And I was like, oh, thanks. That really helps me a lot. So I think I was more, that first year to 2 years, I was in denial about anybody knowing. I didn't want them to know. I was like, no, cool, we don't talk about it. I would do everything to pretend I wasn't having a hot flush when in fact I had sweat pouring off of me. It was like, so we're not going to talk about how hot you are, Faith.
Really? I'm really cold. Sweat, 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 sweat. In fact, I'm heating up. It's fine.
Hey, you might want to take your cardigan off. No, it's fine. I'll keep it on because it was hiding the sweat patches. It's fine. I'm sweating like anything. I'll keep the cardigan on still. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. But you sure
Anyone got a hat for Faye? Anyone got a woolly hat? Let's just pile it all on here.
It was like
That's a metaphor for life, though, isn't it? Really. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just layering this shit on. Just give me more heat.
Exactly. And I think sometimes you just have to voice things. And by me voicing, I'm going through the menopause, I'm voicing me. And I'm voicing it as in, this is who I am. Like, just accept it. Don't accept it. Fine. See you later. Bye. But me voicing, I am going through the menopause was actually quite empowering, scary, very, very, very scary, because I was opening myself up to a taboo and a myth which had entrenched itself in me. And I've opened it up and just gone, I'm going through the menopause and waiting to be judged, because that was my thought process. I'm old, I'm past it. That's it. No one's going to want to interact with me anymore. No one's going to want to have that conversation or have a laugh or go out with me and stuff, because I was past it. So
you just said like 2 words there, taboo and myth. I'm like, that's like soul food. That's like soul food. Look at the taboo that has arisen globally, maybe even to the far outreaches of Mars. The myth that is created. We're not being told the stories like we used to. You know, there was so much in regards to the wisdom that came from these wonderful stories we used to receive. We don't have that anymore. We are guessing. Not only that, we have been guessed upon with our health. Female health has been abused throughout the ages, you know, and you can turn your head away from this as much as you want, but it's truth. Read Unwell Women, phenomenal, by Eleanor Cleghorn.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. This is where it's all become distorted. But you broke down the myth. I love it when you said, I felt empowered. I was scared, but I was empowered.
Yeah. Because I stepped out my comfort zone to actually, because as I think many women do, I built this cocoon around me, which was my defense mechanism. This was my safe place where I adopted certain ways of thinking. I said certain things and I portrayed a certain way out to the world. But that was kind of my cocoon. And by pulling that cocoon down and going, I'm going with the menopause, do you know what I mean? It's like breaking down my own personal barriers. So I think where women still find it taboo, or even the fact that so many women are talking about it, I can see why there might be an increase in women thinking it's taboo. Because we're kind of knocking on their own defenses, their own thought processes, and they will struggle with that until they are ready. They might never be, until they are ready to accept what is happening within them, within their heads, within their bodies. It will always be a taboo for them.
I think like this is a great way of pulling the conversation to a close, Faye. You know, when you're ready, you know, there are spaces out there for you to unravel the belief that it's a taboo. But why get to your deathbed and look back and regret not fully indulging in what is your birthright? You know, no regrets.
Just accepting the knowledge that is there. You don't have to go skipping down the high street singing
Naked.
No,
That's fine.
I mean,
that
if you
for you.
want to, that's fine. But but it's just accepting things. And yeah, I think there's so much around it: circumstances, beliefs, your environment, and stuff. But if you are ready, you can be ready quietly. You don't have to sing it out loud.
No.
So your girlfriends or your husband might disapprove, but do something for yourself. Do something for you that will make you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nurture, look after,
Yeah.
treat yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Such an extent.
You can
treat yourself, love. Treat
you
yourself.
can take the yeah. You go out of London. Can't say London, that girl. Oh, no.
Oh my God.
And I wouldn't
I think that was a
want to
really interesting conversation. I loved it.
It was always good to sit here, love. And just to remind you, we are back next Friday, 12:30. This is our time.
This is our time. And if there's anything you want us to chew the cud, so to speak, over, give us a shout. Drop us a message. We're both on Instagram. And there is Project Woman TV on Instagram. So just drop us a message and tell us what you think.
Song choice, though. We didn't mention it at the
Song
start.
choice for today is going to be Shalimar, Take That to the Bank.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Take That to the Bank.
So I've got to get it up because I can't pronounce it. It's called Kinvor. I've just found it. A friend introduced me. Is it classical music? I suppose you would say that. But Marazion, their first song, I tell you what, it is an absolute
Is it uplifting?
cracker. Oh my goodness. I put it on this morning. I said to everyone, do not turn anything on. I just need to listen to this. And it just floated through. And I done a little bit of shake it out. Woo! And it's just amazing. So I'll share both songs underneath this, and we'll see you next week, peeps.
All right. Nice one, guys. See you later. Have a good weekend. Bye.